Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be doing Chapter 8, Performance Management and Employee Development. Okay, here we go. So first a little overview. We'll be looking at personal development plans, the supervisor's role in the development plan process, and 360-degree feedback systems, which we talked about in one of our discussions. I think that was 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. I forget. Okay, so stakeholders in the development process, we have the employees and the managers. Um, of course, employees are looking to improve, develop, improve their skills, contribute more to the organization. That's their role, and the managers are there to guide this process, to give employees the skills that they need, the feedback that they need, and the support that they need to develop and to successfully navigate the process of, uh, of development and successfully navigate the process of performance management. Okay, so personal development plans. So plans are specific, usually to each employee, um, at least to some degree, specific to each employee. There's usually overlap between different employees' plans across different job functions, across different job levels, but in some, at least in some small way, they're specific to each employee. They meet each employee's specific needs, different specific goals for each employee, and they highlight the employee's strengths and that individual employee's areas that are in need of development. Okay, so each plan is somewhat personal in nature. Okay, so what does a plan look like? It has objectives. Um, it has some form of content, so that's usually material that the employee can use to improve. Just these are things that are used to better the employee's skills, to align the employee with the goals of the organization, and then activities that the employee engages in to hone his or her skills, improve the skills, and to actually practice what he or she needs to do to become more effective in the organization. Okay. Before we move on there, actually, let's jump back for a second. So first, let's talk about the objectives. So the objective of the personal development plan is to encourage the employee to engage in some form of continuous learning. Okay, so that could look like going to meetings, taking classes, learning from different individuals in the organization that have been there longer, that know more, that can do more, who have had more time to better themselves and better their skills. Okay, um, so encourage the employee to learn, encourage the employee to grow, give the employee reasons why uh, why improvement will be better for the employee and for the organization. So providing the employee with these reasons is certainly an objective of the plan. Okay, so some specific objectives: improve performance in current job. Okay, sustain performance. If they're doing well, you want to keep it sustained. Okay, you don't want them to start slipping. Prepare for advancement. Okay, so this is giving employees a reason to improve, a reason to sustain their performance. If advancement is an option, this will certainly give them some motivation to do that, and enrich the employee's work experience. So helping them to better enjoy their job. You know, if an employee is unclear about his or her duties in the role or at the organization, helping the employee to understand what he or she is doing there, help them to understand how they can better do their job. That's going to give them a better experience at work. It'll help them to enjoy their job a bit more. So enriching the employee's work experience is certainly an objective of the development plan. Okay, so let's take a look at content. We have the resources the strategies. So this is how the new skills or the knowledge will be acquired. Um, materials or looking over different strategies that have been laid out by members of the organization in higher up positions. So sort of giving the employee some form of content that they can draw on to help improve their knowledge, help improve their skills. Okay, and then we have the developmental um, objectives. So a timeline, um, new skills or knowledge that the employee needs to learn or that we would like the employee to learn. That can also fall into content. And okay, so let's move on to activities. Activities can include on-the-job training, so giving the employee to practice the skills that he or she is aspiring to learn. Some form of mentoring, so bringing in somebody who's been there longer, who's better at those skills that we would like the employee to improve upon. Having those people come in and do some mentoring, certainly that's developmental. That would help with the employee's development. Some form of job rotation, so this involves the employee spending short periods of time in different roles around the organization, okay, other than their own, to just gain a better understanding of how of how the system works, so to speak. Okay. Some other developmental activities, courses, taking classes, um, self-guided reading or self-guided study. So maybe using resources like the internet or free community meetings where the employee can learn and develop his or her own skills. Getting a degree, which is more of a formal activity, a way to improve skills, a way to develop. Getting a degree at an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, what have you. Attending conferences, professional conferences, or membership in a professional organization. So organizations that focus on training or business development or marketing are great resources to learn and to meet people who can aid in the development process. Okay, so let's move on, and we'll look at the supervisor's role in this process. So what does the supervisor do? It's the supervisor's duty to explain what is absolutely necessary to the employee to advance to that next level, advance his or her skills, get to a place where the employee needs to be successful in that organization. So it's the supervisor's role to explain this clearly and to lay out these guidelines very clearly for the employee. Okay, and the direct supervisor usually has some knowledge of where these things we just talked about, the content and the developmental activities, the supervisor should have some idea of where the employee can find the content or where the employee can get involved in the activities. Okay, so refer employees to the content, to the activities, and the supervisor should be setting or helping the employee to, because it's a collaborative process, the supervisor should be helping the employee to set objectives, set goals as far as improvement goes. Okay. All right. The supervisor should also be checking on the employee's progress and providing motivation. But as we've talked about in previous chapters, it's certainly a collaborative process, and it's the employee has a responsibility to be taking the initiative and approaching the supervisor to discuss his or her own progress, and keeping his or herself motivated. Yes. So it's a two-way street. Certainly, each side has a role. The supervisor and the employee. Each side has a role to play. Each side has a responsibility to sort of keep an eye on progress and keep an eye on motivation. Okay. So let's move on to the feed-forward interview. So basically, a feed-forward interview is a review, an interview where the supervisor and the employee will get together and talk about development. Pretty much just talk about the development of the employee, what's next for the employee, um, looking at what the employee has done well in the past, looking at what the employee is doing well right now, looking at where the employee needs to go, what gaps need to be filled to get to that place of success, to improve those skills that the employee needs to succeed in the organization. So let's look at some steps of the feed-forward interview. First, elicit a success story. So that's the piece where supervisors are looking at how the employee has been succeeding thus far in the organization, looking at their contribution to the organization, their performance in the organization at this point, um, and sort of making a story out of that. You know, how have you been doing? How have you been having success? What has helped you to have success? Are you enjoying that success? Are you motivated to sustain your effort to keep achieving that success? Okay, and this is where uncovering the underlying success factors is going to come in. What's helped you to, what's kept you motivated? You know, what have you enjoyed about your success? What skills have you drawn on to have success in the organization so far? Okay. And then extrapolating the past into the future. So, how are we going to keep using your experiences, the skills you've gained thus far to sustain success and even improve success in the future? What are you missing? What do you need to gain an advantage in the future? What do you need to improve your skills in the future? Okay. So 3 basic steps here, basically looking at the past, the present, the future, success in each of those areas, and how success has been gained in the past, how success is being had in the present, and what you need to achieve success in the future. Okay. All right, 360-degree feedback systems. This is something that we talked about in our discussion, so everyone will have some idea of what we're talking about now. So 360-degree feedback systems, they help employees to improve their performance by using information gathered from many different sources that are looking at the employee from different viewpoints. Okay, so we have supervisors. You can imagine sort of a hierarchical chart. We have an employee sort of in the middle. Supervisors would be, above the employee, looking down on them, not in the looking down in a derogatory sense, but just looking down sort of the employment ladder at the employee. Peers are sort of to the left and the right. They're on the same level as the employee. Subordinates would be sort of looking up the ladder at the focus employee, the focal employee. Customers aren't really on that diagram. They'd sort of be out to the, out in a different plane of their own. Certainly important customer feedback, customer information. And then the employee's own evaluation, how the employee sees his or herself, is certainly important. Okay, so what are some norms that we need to make sure the organization has for 360-degree feedback systems to work? Okay, so these are sort of some prerequisites that the organization needs to have for 360-degree systems to really work and really contribute to the development of employees and to the success of the organization. Without these things, it's very unlikely that 360-degree feedback systems are going to work. So cooperation among employees, certainly openness and trust among the employees who are involved in the 360-degree feedback process. Everyone should value everyone else's input and participation. It should be welcomed. It should be valued. People shouldn't be afraid to give their opinions or provide reviews of each other. and there should be a perception of fairness. Okay, people should believe that, well, not just believe, but it should be the case that employees aren't, it should be the case that people aren't inflating ratings purposely or deflating ratings purposely. These are some terms from the past couple of chapters that we've gone over. So purposely giving people higher ratings, purposely giving people lower ratings. This should not be happening. And if it is, it's unlikely that the 360-degree feedback system is going to do any good. Okay. So, is the 360-degree feedback system always beneficial? And this is looking a lot like what we discussed in that discussion. Can't remember if it was last week or a couple weeks ago. This is looking a lot like that discussion. So these types of systems are going to be beneficial for those individuals who are high in self-efficacy. They perceive that there really is a need to change. So if the focal employee doesn't really feel like he or she needs to be changing anything, then they're going to say, hey, what's the point of this whole 360-degree feedback system? They're not going to take any of it seriously. They believe that they can change. Okay, so they believe that they themselves can actually make a change. If they don't believe that they can, again, they're going to say, what's the point if I can't even make this change? Whether they believe that's because of something to do with their own personality or with their own skills. If they don't think they can achieve those skills or that level of development, then it's less likely that they will be open to feedback or take feedback seriously. Individuals that set goals and take action are certainly going to have a better experience with 360-degree feedback. They'll be better able to implement the feedback that they receive if they actually set goals and then take action towards achieving those goals. And it's going to be a lot less effective for individuals who are low in self-efficacy or don't really have these 4 points listed above. So if they don't perceive a need to change, if they don't believe a change is feasible, if they don't set goals and take action, it's going to be tough for these individuals to succeed with 360-degree feedback. Okay. So an overview. We'll look at some advantages, we'll look at some risks, and we'll look at some characteristics of a good system. So first, some advantages. Certainly a decreased possibility of biases. If we have multiple people rating one employee, there's going to be multiple sources, and hopefully any strong biases will stand out. If four different people are rating this employee as a 9 out of 10, and then we have one person rating this employee as a 2 out of 10, we can see that this 2 out of 10 is sort of the exception to the other ratings, and that this is a bias that we are aware of now, that we have multiple sources to compare it to. Okay. Increased awareness of expectations. So this is just the piece that we talked about before. So the supervisor's role in the development plan. So like we talked about before, the supervisor's role is to lay out the expectations, lay out the guidelines for the employee. But in a 360-degree feedback system, we might have multiple people laying out their own expectations of the employee. And hopefully these expectations align in some way. I mean, different people might have slightly different expectations for the same person, but if these expectations are accurate and if they're fair, they should align. There should be some overlap. Your supervisor should expect pretty much the same thing from an employee as the department manager, the person who's even above that supervisor. So both people should expect similar output. They should have similar expectations of the same employee. increased commitment to improve self-perception of performance, improve performance, reduction of undiscussables, so bringing things into the light that might otherwise be swept under the rug. If you have more people providing reviews, then it's more likely that something that's considered undiscussable but should be discussed, it's more likely that those things will come up and be discussed, which is good for everybody. Okay? And employees feel more in control of their own careers when this 360-degree feedback is implemented. Because remember, part of 360-degree feedback is the employee providing his or her own rating of him or herself and comparing this to other ratings. Okay, so in a good 360-degree feedback system, the employee should have the opportunity to discuss ratings with everybody who provides them. So this gives the employee a sense of control over their own career, a sense of control over their own destiny in that organization, so to speak. Okay, some risks. Unconstructive, negative feedback hurts. Okay, so if raters are just providing feedback to tell the employee that he or she is doing poorly, but they're not offering any sort of solution, or they're not, they totally ignore what the employee is doing well, then that's going to be perceived negatively, or it's certainly very likely that it will be perceived negatively, and unlikely that the employee will use this feedback to improve. It's very defeating to get this sort of feedback. If individuals are not comfortable with the system, it's certainly going to be hard to take feedback to heart and take feedback and use it to improve. If there are a few raters, then anonymity is compromised. Okay, few raters, then the focal employee will know who's rating him or her, and if that's the case, there's potential for relationships to be damaged, or for raters to artificially inflate their ratings if they know that the focal employee is going to know that it is in fact that specific person. They're going to know the identity of the person, then that person might inflate ratings so that the employee doesn't get mad at them. Raters may become overloaded, so if there's many people to rate, raters might just become burnt out having to rate so many people. Okay. And stock values may drop. If 360-degree feedback systems, when you're involving that many people in a rating system, it sort of gets around the level of performance that an employee is engaging in. It gets around the company. So if a high-ranking executive gets a poor performance review and everybody knows about it, or a lot of people know about it, it might affect the company's worth, the company's net worth, and this could potentially be bad for everybody. When companies' net worth decreases, people sometimes get fired. So certainly something to consider. Okay, so some characteristics of a good system. Certainly we should have anonymity for some of the reasons we just discussed. Observation of employee performance. Every rater should have observed employee performance at some point, so they can actually give accurate ratings. Avoidance of survey fatigue. So that's rater overload, like we just talked about. So having to give too many reviews, having to answer too many questions, answer too many surveys, people are going to get burnt out. People are going to get burnt out if they have to answer surveys every single day for multiple employees. What else? Hopefully raters are trained on how to rate the employees. We talked about rater training last week. Certainly important to make sure raters are all on the same page, to make sure they're all rating employees on the same scales, on the same metrics. They're considering the same areas of performance. So certainly something that is very important for accuracy of feedback. Okay. Some more characteristics of a good system should be used for developmental purposes only. Okay, at least initially. So you want to keep a positive spin on the 360-degree feedback system. If you remember in one of these other slides, we talked about how negative feedback without any direction or suggestions about how to improve, or feedback that totally ignores what the employee has been doing well, that feedback is not going to be taken well. So when you put a positive spin on it, when you provide suggestions for improvement, when you provide some positive feedback with the negative feedback, then you're using 360-degree feedback for developmental purposes. You're giving the employee something to strive for. You're letting the employee know that he or she is in fact doing some things right. They just need to sort of expand upon these things that they're doing right and minimize the things that they're not doing right. If you do that, then it's developmental. If it's not developmental, then employees will not take it well. Emphasis on behaviors and not results. I think I remember talking about this in previous chapters. This was a while ago, though. So emphasis on behaviors. Make sure you're evaluating the employee, rating the employee on what they're doing, if they're doing something right, rather than if the results are there. Because employees are not always able to control results. Okay, so the employee may be doing all the right behaviors. They might be doing everything they need to be doing at work they're doing everything right. But something that is out of their control is causing the results to just not be there. The results aren't there. Okay, so it can be dangerous to rate employees on results. Okay, if the results are not there, you give an employee a poor rating, but the employee has been doing everything right, then you're going to have problems. The employee is going to feel very defeated. They're going to feel that these ratings are very unfair, and they will not take the feedback very well at all. And they certainly won't be encouraged to improve. Okay. Raters go beyond ratings, so it's not a simple 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10. It's it's the rating plus a discussion about why the employee got that rating, a discussion about how the employee can improve, what the employee has been doing well and not well. Okay, so not a simple number on the scale, but a discussion about performance. Feedback interpretation. So I think this goes hand in hand with raters go beyond ratings. So interpretation of the actual number, and some interpretation of the feedback given to the employee. So not just say a 3 out of 10 and you're doing very poorly. Performance is not satisfactory. Okay, you want to give some feedback. You want to say performance is not satisfactory because you haven't been filling out this report properly. You haven't been talking to this individual when you need to. You haven't been putting this widget together properly. Okay, so some interpretation of the feedback, so employees know exactly what they are doing wrong or doing right, and what they need to do to improve. And some follow-up. So after the feedback is given and the employee has some time to implement the feedback and maybe make some changes, you want to follow up and say, okay, yes, you are implementing the feedback in the way that you should. You are improving the skills in the way that we suggested that you should. And it's likely that your ratings, your feedback will be more positive next time. Okay, maybe giving them a little preview of the next performance management meeting and saying, you're on the right track. you're doing well, it's very likely that your review and your ratings will be more positive next time. All right, quick review. So what did we do today? We looked at personal development plans. So we sort of saw that plans should certainly have some overlap between different roles in the organization, but that every individual is different and every individual is at a different level of skill, a different point in their career, and that development plans should be tailored to each unique individual. They shouldn't be some cookie cutter approach to every single person in the organization. They should consider that individual as a unique person, consider where that individual is in terms of skill, in terms of their unique role in the organization. Okay. The direct supervisor's role. So it's not simply to provide a simple rating and say, you're at a 4 out of 10 and you need to improve. Meeting over. That's really not what a supervisor should be doing. They should be providing guidelines to the employee, guidelines to follow. They should be providing materials for the employee to use, content for the employee to use to improve. They should be suggesting activities that the employee can engage in to improve. Okay, they should be discussing the results of reviews with employees so employees know exactly what they need to do to meet the goals to improve their skills. Okay, so a supervisor is certainly not just a provider of a number on a scale. Okay, they should be, I guess you could say, coaching in some way. They should be really guiding the employee along. They should hopefully be really invested in the employee's development. At least a good supervisor is. And then we looked at 360-degree feedback systems. So the positive and negatives of a good of a 360-degree feedback system, and what a good 360-degree feedback system should look like, the characteristics that a good system should have. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you all for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.